Essentially, first and foremost, it starts with strategy before tactics. So we go to work immediately on helping them narrow their ideal target market, come up with a message of difference that promises to solve a problem that their ideal client has, and then we start building a story around that strategy. Probably the biggest differentiator for us, and sad to say this, quite frankly, is that many marketing firms jump right into tactics. They're selling the idea of the week. We really back up and say, what's going to sustain momentum for this business long term, and that's generally being known as the best to someone.
The following is brought to you by Thryv, the end-to-end client experience platform that helps you get the job, manage the job, and get credit.
Hey, this is Gordon Henry at Winning on Main Street. And this week you get to meet John Jantsch of Duct Tape Marketing. John is very well known in the marketing space, written multiple best-selling books, including Duct Tape Marketing, Duct Tape Selling, The Referral Engine, SEO for Growth, The Self-Reliant Entrepreneur, and a new one coming out soon called The Ultimate Marketing Engine. He's appeared on national media, major marketing events, TEDx speaker. He also does the Duct Tape Marketing podcast. Welcome, John.
Hey, thanks for having me, Gordon.
Yeah, great to have you. So before we dig into your business, tell us a little bit about your background. How'd you get to where you are today?
So I really haven't done much but own my own marketing consulting firm in life, going on 30 plus years. I got out of college, went to work for an ad agency, marketing agency for about 5 years, realized that any dummy could run a business. So I thought I'd start my own. Like a lot of people, no real plan. I hustled projects. I got big clients. I got little clients. Eventually, I really settled on working with small business owners. Still my passion today. But ultimately, the genesis of Duct Tape Marketing was my frustration with trying to work with small business owners that had the same needs and challenges, but never the same budgets or even attention spans as much larger clients. And so I decided one day I was going to create a systematic approach to marketing where I could walk in and say, look, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what you're going to do. Here are the results we hope to get. Here's what it costs. And that was really the genesis of Duct Tape Marketing. And now that approach is actually licensed by about 150 agencies around the world that we're working really at any given day with thousands of small business owners.
Oh, it's fantastic. So before I go too far, why duct tape? What does that mean?
Sure.
Duct tape. What's the analogy?
Yeah. So it's really a metaphor in a lot of ways for what it's like to grow a small business. When I decided I was going to take the systematic approach, almost try to turn marketing into a product, I said, I got to give it a brand name. I have to package it somehow. And that name just kind of occurred to me as I was and still am a small business owner. As sometimes you just need something that it doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to work. And certainly I've benefited, of course, from the strange affection a lot of people actually have for all things duct tape.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of small business owners really get the metaphor. That when it comes down to naming a company, which is a part of marketing, that's a big goal, is for it to stand out and differentiate, but also for people to get it.
Agree. It's a great name. He's the duct tape guy.
Yeah.
It sort of sticks with you.
I will say one challenge it presented is my books have been translated into about 18 countries or 18 languages. And not very many countries actually have a translation that gets that across. So for example, the Portuguese is marketing that is low cost and effective. It doesn't ring, does it?
Not quite. Doesn't roll off the tongue same way. Yeah. So you've built a small business marketing success system, I think you call it.
Yeah.
That you teach your clients. What's the system?
So essentially, first and foremost, it starts with strategy before tactics. So we go to work, anybody that engages myself or one of my consultants, we go to work immediately on helping them narrow their ideal target market, come up with a message of difference that promises to solve a problem that their ideal client has. And then we start building a story around that strategy and content. Today, content, I refer to it as the voice of strategy. We then build a complete customer journey, something that I've been a framework that I've been evolving with for the last 20 years called the Marketing Hourglass, which has 7 stages: know, like, trust, try, buy, repeat, and refer. And that framework, foundation is where we start. Then and only then do we start saying, what's our website got to do? What's our content got to do? What's our SEO got to be? Where do we need to be sending that message? So probably the biggest differentiator for us, and sad to say this, quite frankly, is that, many marketing firms jump right into tactics. They're selling the idea of the week. We really back up and say, what's going to sustain momentum for this business long term, and that's generally being known as the best to someone.
Yeah. So you build this strategy, this framework for your clients, and then you move into tactics.
We do.
So when it comes to tactics, do you sell advertising and marketing campaigns as well as the strategy? You do the whole thing, or just the strategy?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we look at marketing as an integrated system. So we build that strategy, and then today the foundation is always going to. I mean, we have to be online. We have to build a web presence, which starts with a website. I don't care what kind of business you're in today. So we build that foundation of website content and SEO really at the strategic level. And then we go to work on lead generation and scaling. And so, as you mentioned, lead generation takes many forms, referrals, networking, speaking, podcasting, obviously advertising in both online and offline. But we build the appropriate tactics and integrate those tactics based on the strategy.
Right. And your firm, if your client wants you to do that for them, you do that for them?
We do. We've got a couple flavors. We certainly have most of the clients that work with our consultants are like, please just do it for me. Just as long as I'm getting the results, I don't even care what you're doing, to tell you the truth. I mean, there's that sort of flavor of totally do it for you. We also have folks that have maybe either an internal team or they've got a web person, an SEO person. And what we end up being then is the orchestra leader. So, because that's the one thing that I see that is a real challenge for business owners is they know they need all these parts. And so they go out and hire them separately. And then they're not even talking to each other. The SEO person's not like talking to the content person. It's like, how does that work? So we help orchestrate. And then the third flavor that we've recently introduced is that we have firms that have internal teams. And those people, they're not getting that much out of them because they are whoever they are and whatever they brought to the table, but there's nobody that's, the founder of the company quite often is not a marketer, and there is no CMO in the organization. And so we kind of play a fractional CMO role some cases, but we also have created an entire coaching program. So we actually have an entire online coaching program where we'll go in and somebody's got like 2 kind of fresh out of college, folks that they have working on their marketing, and we can actually train those folks and get them, speaking the language and show them how to install a system.
Yeah. So you get hired by real small business owners and go to work for them. I'm curious, who hires you? What's your typical customer look like, and what's the typical project, and what does it typically cost, and what are the typical results?
Yeah. So we do work with, very small businesses. I mean, obviously, we actually don't work with startups very often because they're in some cases they're too small, or in some cases they don't have certainly the money to invest in marketing. Our typical client is actually somebody that's been somewhat outwardly successful. They've passed at least the $1 million mark. Some $5, $10, $15 million, but they still don't have that systematic approach. They typically don't have a strategic marketing hire, inside the organization. The founder's been great at selling. They've got a good product or service, and so they've kind of grown their way but stalled. So that's really our typical client. It's all over the place in terms of industry, but I like to say that they're real small businesses. A lot of brick and mortar businesses in local communities, or who kind of our system, is really attracted to. We work on a completely a retainer type of engagement. So our average engagement's about 19 months from, it's actually $3,300 a month is the average across our network, but we certainly have folks that are doing much larger projects for $5,000 and $10,000 and $15,000. But typically, that's the investment in terms of engaging one of our consultants for this long-term type of approach. In terms of results, again, that's all over the place. We certainly have people. I have people that that I worked with, years ago that then build a team internally, and they're $100 million businesses now. So we have lots of those kind of studies. But we also have just the probably ones I'm just as proud of is businesses that were really in chaos because they were just doing the marketing idea of the week where they were trying to market to anybody and everybody. And consequently, they weren't going anywhere. It was like treading water. And we get those people really on a trajectory path. It might be 10, 15, 20% a year, but at least they've got some control over their marketing now.
Yeah. Now, what do most marketing consultants or agencies get wrong that you get right? It sounds like you were talking about the strategy piece, that they jump to the tactics too much. Is that typically what people do wrong?
I would say that's we see all the time. I mean, that is definitely a differentiator for us. But I'll tell you the other thing, and this I have to be careful about how I say this to not offend. But a lot of times they just do what the client tells them. And my belief is most small business owners don't have any idea what they need. And so to allow them to say, I need a website that does this, and we need to be doing Facebook ads. Maybe they do, but quite often, we actually back them up and say, no, your real problem is this. And, if you trust us to build this, and not just sell time and projects and whatnot, that long term you're going to have the result that you're after. And many small businesses, that's music to their ears because they don't really want to. Sometimes they're telling people what to do because they think that's what they're supposed to do. They really enjoy actually having somebody they trust, build a marketing system for them. But I would say that's the biggest. Is I see it, every single day where client shows up and says, I got $5,000. I want to do this with it. And they go, okay. Rather than like, is that even the right thing to do?
So you won't take that job. If a plumber calls you up and says, I got $5,000, build me a website. You say, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to do the strategy. I got to do the full program.
Yeah, absolutely. But we don't just say we won't do it. I mean, we teach them, we teach them why they need to back up and do X. I mean, it's so painfully clear. They need a new website because their website isn't getting them any business. Well, there's a reason for that. So a lot of times they just think, oh, I need a new design. Well, that's not really the issue.
Yeah. Do you think most small businesses, at least the ones I know, most of their people actually do the work? They do the plumbing, they do the electrical work, they do what the business is there to do. They don't do marketing or things like that. You have to sort of graduate. Do you think it's better for a small business to farm that out or to bring it in-house? What's your view on that?
Well, so I believe there's sort of a transition that needs to go on. I think the mistake a lot of businesses make is they abdicate their marketing. It's like, oh, you're my SEO person. I don't know what SEO is, but do it. And that's how they get burned. And I'm not picking on SEO people, but I'm just saying, whatever kind of provider, that's a good way to waste a whole lot of money. So they really need to, I tell business owners, they need to educate themselves enough so that they know how to buy marketing services. You should never really abdicate strategy because in a lot of ways, strategy is about customer discovery. It's about honing your message. It's about, paying attention enough so that you know what else you can do with a customer. And I don't think there's too many outside folks that really are going to ever be as close to your customer. So you need to think in terms of owning that. Now, getting pieces of it done and orchestrated, I think is definitely something that a lot of business owners are better off. Instead of trying to figure out AdWords or something, you're better off finding somebody that you trust to do that because you probably are going to make your money doing something else, or at least using your time to do something else. However, as businesses grow, I believe that they need to start making marketing more of an asset internally. And so I am a big fan of really kind of, even if you're working with an outside folk, you should have somebody doing aspects of your marketing. An outside provider is not going to write content like you can get it written by somebody who's there in the trenches. They're never going to do social media. When the boss brings the baby into, to the office for the first time, which is going to make a great social media post. I mean, who's going to capture that, right? Somebody internally. So what I like to do is work with folks, and as we mature their marketing, I actually start helping them build an internal team as well. They may always go to an outside source to have a third party look in and say, hey, what are we doing wrong? What can we do better? But day to day, you need to start building that in some of that aspect internally.
Yeah. Now, you may know our company Thryv, we have a CRM system for small businesses. And so naturally, I'm interested in the technology side of this. What's your view on technology for small businesses, and particularly marketing technology? Is that a piece of the puzzle for you?
Absolutely. If somebody's not using a CRM, they're not using, marketing automation in a way that allows them to follow up and keep track of customers, they're really seriously missing the boat, because they're missing the experience that they could give that would keep somebody around, that would keep them buying more, that would keep them talking about how great you are. So absolutely 100%. The caution that I give folks is that technology is not so that you don't ever have to talk to anybody. Technology is there to actually make a better experience. So how can you actually use your technology to actually make your, what I call hugs and handshakes, even more important to the businesses. Remove friction with technology, make it easier to do the things they want to do, make it easier for salespeople to have knowledge about, what's next, for a customer, but don't use it as a wall.
Yeah, for sure. And just one more point about that is, some people think about marketing as like customer acquisition. And of course, customer acquisition is important. It's the lifeblood, but it's also nice to retain your customers, to generate loyalty from your customers, keep them coming back. You use technology for the repeat business as well as the acquisition business, right?
Yeah, it's funny, so many marketers, you talk to them about lead generation funnels, and they have no problem with that concept. Yeah, I got to get somebody in the door. Well, we build for every one of our clients a buying funnel, a follow-up funnel, a repeat education funnel. I mean, the best thing, some of the best things you can do with marketing automation is teach somebody how to get more of a result, teach people what their expectations are next, teach people, if you sell a software, I mean, having a whole series of content that's going to help people elevate their use, make that software more useful to them. You're obviously your retention is going to go through the roof, but you're also going to start having advocates and fans who talk about, how great the experience is and how much hand-holding you give them. So that's part of the customer journey as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, this is great stuff, John. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in 1 minute with more from John Jantsch.
This episode of Winning on Main Street is brought to you by Thryv, the end-to-end client experience platform that includes everything small business owners need to meet their customers' expectations. Thryv's award-winning and fully mobile interface delivers technology previously reserved for big business to the fingertips of small business owners nationwide. Thryv's built specifically for small business, but there's nothing small about what it can do. Thryv handles your entire customer experience, helping business owners reach more customers, stay organized, get paid faster, and generate online reviews, all from a single device or screen. To learn more about Thryv, visit winningonmainstreet.com and click on Get a Demo. When it comes to software to run your business, there's no comparison. Check out Thryv today.
What do you see out there now in the small business landscape? On the one hand, the economy seems to be coming back. On the other hand, you hear small business people can't even hire anybody anymore. There's nobody to work for them. What are you seeing?
Well, I'm seeing everything that you just described. There certainly are some industries that, are really still in pretty tough shape by no fault of their own, being in the wrong place, the wrong time. I'm also seeing a tremendous amount of opportunity, and especially businesses that, immediately got closer to their customers during this period, started learning more about what they could do. I mean, you've got a couple realities that have gone on. A lot of people are looking for new suppliers for things. I mean, they lost their relationships with some of their companies that they did business with. So a lot of businesses, a lot of individuals are out there looking for somebody else. So there's a real opportunity there. The other thing is that, one of the greatest frictions when it comes to somebody changing to you as as a solution provider for them is it's just change is hard. Nobody likes it. I mean, even if they think, yeah, this might benefit me, but what if it doesn't? Well, I think buyers have never been more open right now to change because so much change went on, so much innovation occurred during 2020 that all of a sudden the sort of the bounds, for making change now have kind of come off. It's like, yeah, let's try it. Let's do something new. Nobody died when we did this, maybe we got to explore new opportunities. So right now, don't be afraid to innovate. Don't be afraid to explore new markets, new approaches, add some things, because you're going to find that there's a willing market out there that you're going to be able to introduce some change to. Yeah.
Great advice. You've written multiple books, as we mentioned before. They've done very well, and now you have a new one coming out in the fall. For the reader of your books, does that explain the system to the point where they could do it themselves? Is that your goal?
It is actually my goal, because I know they won't. I'm just being facetious there, but yeah, I don't hold anything back. I tell people how to do things. My newest book, The Ultimate Marketing Engine, comes with a companion course and all kinds of worksheets, to do exactly the work that we do with our clients. And my belief has always been that, yeah, there definitely are people that are going to take that and they're going to run with it and they're going to do it themselves. But there's an even larger, group of people out there that are like, what you're talking about. You proved it to me. You're not holding anything back. Why don't you do this with me? And so that's always been my belief. And, I don't need everybody to be a customer, for sure.
Right. What would you say, or maybe one or two examples of customers who've had real successes with you? Can you tell us about a customer where you took them from, A to B?
Yeah, sure. One of my favorite stories is because it was an industry that was very behind in the digital world. This was a remodeling contractor that had about 8 or 10 employees. It was a gentleman that had started this himself and had grown really a nice business, had about 8 or 10 employees. They had a website, but it was basically a couple pictures of a couple projects and really no content, no messaging that helped them differentiate. And they were probably, in fact, the year that I started doing business with them, they were doing $1.8 million. They're going to do $63 million this year. They have about 90-ish employees. But frankly, they do great work. People love them. Their people are great, so that's obviously, I can't fix that with marketing. So they get all the credit for that, but we brought them into the digital age, rapidly. I mean, they were probably one of the first remodeling contractors in the country that was blogging and has a podcast and, doing videos and, just getting reviews and all the standard kind of fair stuff. But they really got them ahead of their industry in terms of digital marketing. And so now, you put into a search engine just about any term related to remodeling in their community, and they're going to show up number one. And that's really allowed them to dominate in their space.
That's terrific. And do your customers find you just because, you've got this cool name, Duct Tape Marketing, you've written a few books? How do you market yourself to find them?
We definitely do. One of the things I'm a big proponent of, and I pound on our consultants to do this as well, is that we practice what we preach. I mean, you better be able to find us in search. You better be able to find our consultants' Google My Business pages in their community, and they better be getting reviews and writing content. But I will say that I've been doing this for a long time. As you mentioned, I have books out there. I speak at conferences. Knock on wood, those are coming back. And that sort of collectively, leads people, to at least exploring what we do and hiring us.
Yeah, fantastic. Last question. My least favorite question, but so many small businesses don't make it. Like the percentage of small businesses that fail, first year 20%, I think 3 years it's 50%. The numbers are not encouraging, and yet obviously lots of small, especially today, people are still starting new businesses right and left.
Yeah.
Why do they fail when they fail, and what should they be doing differently? I know it's a big question, but how, what would make those numbers better?
Well, I think one is, let's just face it, some percentage we're not cut out to do this.
Right.
Sounded cool. Let's start a business. So, that's going to be a fair chunk, quite frankly. The other is really just that, sometimes small business owners, not just small business owners, anybody, falls in love with an idea. It's like, I am an accountant. I'm going to start an accountancy, and anybody who needs taxes done, is going to flock to me. And that sort of belief, has them kind of say, well, I'm going to do this thing. And pretty quickly they realize that it's a marketing game as much as it is anything, or a sales game, in many cases. And I think that, what ends up happening a lot of times is because they don't have a marketing strategy. They're trying to be all things to all people. What ultimately ends up happening is they don't get to charge what they need to, because their only differentiator is the low cost provider, perhaps. And so, I think that's what runs people out of business more than anything. It's like, well, I can only get X amount an hour or whatever it is, for my work. And, you do the math on that. It's like, well, that's never going to add up to you being profitable. And so, one of the real benefits of this idea of narrowing your focus on a specific type of client and really getting to understand what problem you solve for them is, it actually allows you to charge a premium. People in many cases come to Duct Tape Marketing, right or wrong, expecting to pay a premium because of what they've seen and heard, from other folks, and because they assign sort of the authority figure, to the author. And that's really what you've got to do, is you've got to find your way, to get out of the commodity pile. Yeah,
that's really well put. And hard to do because, as you said, people tend to dive in and know what they want to do or what the product is, and they figure out the strategy later after it's kind of maybe too late. Well, this has been great, John. You're really a legend in the business. I mean, you've written all these books. You speak. You're kind of a machine, and it's great to have a chance to talk to you. What do you do for fun when you're not writing all these books and speaking? You got any time for pastimes?
Yeah, I do. I spend a lot of time having fun. I live in a playground, basically. You can't see out my window, but you probably have an idea. There's, that's a national park over there. But I'm at about 9,000 feet west of Boulder in the Rocky Mountains. And
wow.
So I do all the silly stuff people do up here. I ski and I ride mountain bikes and I fish trout streams and enjoy every minute of it.
Sounds pretty good. Well, John, this has been delightful. Thank you for joining us. I hope people will maybe pick up a couple of your books and check it out. It's John Jantsch. The company is Duct Tape Marketing, and you can find him at Duct Tape Marketing. It's a mouthful.com. Yeah. And thanks again for joining us.
My pleasure, Gordon.
If you enjoyed this podcast, subscribe and tell a friend or colleague to subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate it. Until next time, make it a great week.